Were you involved in an accident, Stanley?
We were all underground.
What were you doing?
We were in the mine,
Okay.
all of us.
And something happened.
It gave way.
Okay.
It gave way. We couldn't.
Couldn't breathe. Okay. And you're waiting to be rescued?
Just let that feeling go, Stanley.
You just step back from
You can
that.
stop that now.
Let
Just
it go.
move backwards. You don't need to breathe now. You're in spirit. You don't need to breathe. You don't need oxygen. Just keep talking to us. What can you taste, Stanley? Can you taste coal? Can you taste soil?
Ladies and gentlemen, what you have just witnessed is a trainee spirit medium allowing herself to become possessed or host to an earthbound spirit in order to release them to the light. This is all under the watchful eye of Dr. Terence Palmer alongside his colleague, psychic surgeon and spirit medium, Andy Porter. Together, they teach their method known as remote spirit release. Allow me to digress. Back in 2016, my then girlfriend and I went to watch a film at the local cinema. That film was The Conjuring Part 2. We were both truly blown away by the story as it took place in North London back in 1977 and mentioned a man from a society called the Society for Psychical Research, or SPR for short. When we got back, we immediately started to research the true story behind the Enfield haunting as it became known. And were shocked to find that in actuality, the true investigators of the event were two researchers from the SPR named Maurice Gross and Guy Lyon Playfair. They'd virtually moved in with the terrified family at the time, and by doing so, the Enfield haunting became one of the world's most documented cases of paranormal phenomena. Excited to read that the Society had an open lecture event coming up that same week in their new London headquarters in Kensington, I called them the very next morning to inquire about tickets and decided to ask if I could film their event, to which they agreed. Maurice had sadly passed away some years earlier, but was delighted to find that Guy Playfair himself was actually part of the audience. You can see him here on screen. I simply couldn't resist shaking his hand and thanking him for his work and contributions. We even had the opportunity to take a look at a copy of one of Guy Playfair's books, This House is Haunted, personally signed by Maurice Gross, as you can see in these photos. I'll add a link in the description below if you'd like to buy a copy of his book too. I'm proud to say that the Society was very pleased with the work that I had produced for them and invited me to film their 40th International Annual Conference at the University of Leeds in October of that same year. Now, the event was held over a number of days and comprised of 27 truly impressive lectures, talks and presentations given by an astonishing list of world-leading and renowned academics, research scientists, physicists, professors, doctors, pastors, practitioners and investigators of the paranormal in respect of their work evidencing their findings in order to prove or disprove the very existence of paranormal phenomena. Now, one speaker stood out to us in particular, Dr. Terence Palmer. His talk, A Pragmatic Methodology for the Investigation of Hallucinations and Veridical Voices, proposed his theory that spree killers and mass murderers are compelled and influenced into committing such despicable acts of violence due to being possessed by negative entities, be it spirit or demonic, and set about evidencing his work on releasing such individuals of said possession via his unique remote spirit release methods. Here's a small excerpt of his presentation.
These dots represent mass killings, and a mass killing is defined as being the killing of 4 people or more. And the bigger the spot, the more people were killed. This large spot here, look, victims 49. This big spot up here, victims 32. Now, when you can see, we're right up to date here. That last one was reported August the 23rd. Now, I visited Michigan arrived in Michigan on the 8th of May. And what was brought to my attention was this case here. A 45-year-old taxi driver killed 6 people. And the people I was working with said to me, do you think we'd be able to investigate this case to see what motivated these killings? And I said, well, it would be an interesting exercise, wouldn't it? To see how, how we work and how effective it can be. So that's what we did. Mass killers who hear voices and act upon them. What proportion of mass killers hear command hallucinations? And the question is, are these perpetrators just simply evil people? And of course, terrorists, people who act on political motivation, would be in their own category, wouldn't they? But my question is, are these people evil people? Are they mentally ill, not responsible for their actions? Or is there a third possibility? Are they possessed or influenced by an external source that is veridical and identifiable? And this is the key here, this is the crux. How do we tell the difference between an hallucination and a voice from a spirit? How can scientific research answer these questions? And these are the questions that I present to you today. So let's use Myers' method and look at the case of Jason Dalton. On the night of February the 20th, 2016, 6 people were killed and 2 others injured in a series of apparently random shootings that took place in an apartment complex outside a restaurant and a car dealership in Kalamazoo County, Michigan. Police detained a 45-year-old taxi driver, Jason Brian Dalton, as a strong suspect in the shootings, who was subsequently charged with the crime. After his arrest, Dalton confessed to committing the alleged offence. However, he blamed his actions on his Uber mobile app, claiming that its symbol resembled that of the Order of the Eastern Star and that it took over his body during the events after he pressed the button of a new app representing the devil when it abruptly popped up. Police indicated that he had no known criminal history or mental health record.
Yeah, this report here was released by the Kalamazoo City Attorney's Office this afternoon, and it reveals some of the disturbing things that were said during the interviews in the hours after the mass killings. Dalton told police little at first, pleading the Fifth Amendment, but police kept pushing, saying the families of his victims and his family deserved answers. He softened a bit, saying he did not know a child had been shot and that he was sorry for that. But then it quickly turned bizarre. Dalton told police that the Uber app on his phone had taken over. He had only recently started driving for Uber and spent that night picking up and dropping off fares, all during that shooting spree. He said he saw the Eastern Star symbol, then the devil pop up on his phone through the Uber app. He described the devil as a quote-unquote horned cowhead that would give him assignments. He said he picked his targets randomly, but that he did not recall the killings at Sealy Kia. But he told police he remembered the shootings at the Cracker Barrel, says he never aimed and didn't remember the feeling of the gun in his hand, only the sound of pop, pop, pop. Dalton was wearing a bulletproof vest at the time of his arrest and was carrying a loaded 9mm handgun. He told police he did not get into a shootout with them because the color of the Uber app went from black to red. Now, Dalton had no known mental health issues before this, which is why he could legally own a gun, but a judge has ordered a psych exam to see if he is competent to stand trial.
But was his explanation believable? to the rational mind? Of course not. So, let's investigate using the subliminal mind. A soul rescue and spirit release group of 7 participants sat in a remote location from the accused with the intention of investigating by trance-induced remote viewing methods the spirit influence, if any, that may have contributed to the perpetrator's actions. The investigation took place as the accused man waited in jail for his trial. The following video recording focuses on the 2 key members of the circle. There were 7 in the circle, and you'll see 2 members of the circle. I'm the facilitator, and you'll see me working with a medium. The facilitator and the principal medium, the scanner who uses his clairvoyant abilities in a form of astral projection to scan the subject from a distance.
Now, there is much to say on the subject of astral projection or remote viewing. But for anybody that may have any doubts whatsoever over the authenticity of our innate human ability to utilize these ESPs, allow me to explain. Since the dawn of recognizable religion, our species have, in all our various systems of belief, proposed that our physical being is separate from our consciousness, and therefore not governed by time nor distance. First referenced by Buddhist monks around 500 BCE, the concept of distance between objects or beings having any relevance whatsoever was described as separation is simply an illusion for consciousness. For many years now, law enforcement agencies around the world have, on occasion, reached out to psychics for their assistance on their most difficult cases with shockingly accurate results. Cases such as the capture of James Kardich, arrested in 1982 for the serial murders of 2 young women with the help of psychic Nancy Elon Weber. Or that of the 1987 case of Etta Louise Smith, who, despite having never even claimed to be a psychic, had a powerfully unusual experience that led police to the body of a murder victim, but was later arrested as the prime suspect, as, in her own words,
"Well, they said I knew too much about it not to have been involved. They said I had to have been there, to have known that."
And despite these positive outcomes being dismissed by so many.
I told them that there would be a hammer that she was killed with and that it would be in a swamp. I drew where the swamp was. They went and found a hammer with blood on it. It wasn't her blood. Nobody ever did anything to find out if it matched anything else.
During the Cold War, the USSR was suspected of investigating the use of psychics to infiltrate the US's top-secret projects. The US, therefore, had the CIA green-light what became known as Project Stargate and began its own secret research based at the Stanford Research Institute under Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ. This went on to the tune of some $25 million over a period of 23 years from 1972 and yielded some extraordinary results. Much of the information held by the CIA obviously remains top secret to this day, but some limited information has been made publicly available and released thanks to the Freedom of Information Act, as you can see here in this intelligence document, held in respect of the USSR's own research in psychic abilities using patient volunteers. One particular psychic named Pateko had apparently perfected his method of use. So regardless of our current understanding of this phenomena or lack thereof, the fact remains that whether you are hunting down a serial killer, attempting to locate hostages, tracking down the hiding places of political dictators such as Noriega, Colonel Gaddafi, searching for drug lords hiding deep in the jungles of Colombia, or seeking to infiltrate foreign intelligence top-secret projects through walls and physical barriers usually impenetrable by any other means. Mix this remote viewing psychic ability with the gift of seeing into the spirit world and communicating to those entities within, and you have the perfect recipe regardless of space-time.
Now, when working remotely in this way, various methods are used in order to retrieve information. Information can be given to the medium telepathically by spirit guides. So he's acting in the true sense of a medium. He's the third party conveying information, and he will speak using the third person, or the spirit guide says, or he says. Or he can volunteer to allow himself to be used as a trance medium, inviting the possession of the spirit. And the key indicator that the medium is possessed by the spirit is when he speaks in the first person, as I. And here is an example. Does anyone know the name of this man?
Jacob, right?
Well, we're talking about the following.
I believe it's Jason Wilbur, but I'm not 100%.
Well, I checked it out. There's plenty of stuff already been posted. His name is Jason Dalton, and he's becoming known as the Kalamazoo Killer. And he is 45 years old, married with 2 children. Okay. So that's what this case is about. It's an exercise to see whether we can detect that he has anything that's influenced his behaviour. Whether we can do anything constructive with it with the authorities is another story, but it's going to be a good exercise in how we do our work. What I'd like you to do now, Shoka, is wear your cloak of invisibility. Allow our guides to take a part of your consciousness, guide a part of your consciousness to Jason Dalton. Approach carefully and discreetly. And let me know what you find. Just give me your impressions on your initial contact.
So right now I'm just inside of the cell that he's staying in. He is kind of like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I can already see one entity without scanning him. It's very close.
Okay. Is it within his energy field, or is it apart from him? Is it attached, or is it shadowing? How would you describe the relationship between this entity and Jason?
Kind of right next to him, but in the same space.
Okay. Would it be helpful for us to engage this entity in dialogue?
It's not helpful for removing the entity, but it could be helpful for learning purposes.
Do you have a name?
Call me Steve.
Call you Steve. Okay. That's a human name. Have you ever had a human life?
Yes.
You have. Okay, Steve. Thank you. And when did you live a human life?
700 lifetimes ago.
700 lifetimes ago. Have you been around the earth all the time since then?
In various forms.
So you come and go. Do you come and go at your own volition, or do you respond to directions from someone else?
Both.
Both. So you have free will and you follow directions.
I choose to follow directions.
You choose to follow directions. Okay, fine. So you are in the In the close proximity of a man that we call Jason, can I ask you why you are close to him? Do you have an objective that we would understand? You really like to kill. Okay. But your spirit, aren't you? Your spirit. Are you able to kill yourself? You are able to kill. But isn't it necessary for you to exercise your desire to kill through another person to carry out the act for you? Or are you able to do it yourself?
Sometimes I can do it myself.
So how do you do it yourself without the use of another person? How would you do that?
I just come in.
You just come in.
Shadow.
A shadow. Okay. So each time you come into this world as a shadow, you are able to cause death by killing, just by using your own energy.
It takes a lot.
Takes a lot. Okay. Well, it'd be interesting to learn how you do it because you're non-material. So how does a non-material being kill another human? How do you do that? You obviously have great power. And you're obviously very, very proud of the fact that you can exercise this power and demonstrate your power by killing people and getting enjoyment from it. But I'm really interested to know how you do it.
I get tired of questions.
You get tired of questions, okay. So, I suppose we'd better end the conversation, hadn't we? Edited down to 6 minutes from a 26-minute conversation. But I just, because of the restraints on our time here, I couldn't show you the whole thing.
Later that evening, we were invited to join the speakers for a formal dinner, whereby we ended up in conversation with Dr. Palmer. By the end of the evening, he'd invited us to film some of his work. We agreed without hesitation. Now, this is where I need you to keep an open mind and remember. What you're about to see is a man, an ex-British soldier, who has been plagued by multiple negative voices for the past 20-something years, pushing him to the point of near insanity, being forcibly sectioned under the UK's Mental Health Act, diagnosed with acute schizophrenia and PTSD, pumped full of every type of antipsychotic drug you can imagine, eventually bringing him to the point of making attempts upon his own life. Whether you believe in the paranormal or not, whether you believe these voices to be from inside his own mind or caused by external forces that we cannot fully explain or understand, the only importance should be placed on whether or not the treatment works, whether or not this treatment cures those inflicted upon. Here, Dr. Palmer and his colleague Andy will endeavour to rid him of these voices, and in so doing so, we turn this man's life. Ladies and gentlemen, remote spirit release.